Hello everybody, and welcome to a Ravnica Allegiance draft here on the channel. Before I dive in, I do want to remind you that if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, click that bell so you don't miss any future videos, and leave a comment in the comment section down below with any questions or feedback. I do take the time to read every single comment I get, so I will do my best to respond to your queries. Without further ado, let's dive on in. If you do enjoy my content and would like to support it directly, you can do so via the Patreon, patreon.com/NicolaiBolas. Get access to some rewards in the process. But let's start talking Ravnica Allegiance. This is a flashback set that came out quite a long time ago at this point, so many of you might not have drafted it, so I'm going to be going over the format basics while I draft and doing my best to get you ready for your own drafts, even if you don't have the exact same path through the draft. So, this is another guild set following up Guilds of Ravnica, which means that it is a set of 5 guilds, those being Azorius, which is blue-white, Orzhov, which is black-white, Simic, which is blue-green, Rakdos, which is black-red, and of course, dang, which one am I forgetting? Red something. Oh, and Gruul, of course. Gruul Guild, red-green. So that's really going to define how we draft this pack. In this pack, there's not really a ton of great stuff. Cry can sometimes be okay, but it oftentimes kills your own stuff. Overall, this is a really weak pack, so I think I'm just going to take Azorius Knight Arbiter because it can be a really good card. Generally, though, this pack is quite underpowered. Macabre Mockery is sometimes good as a way to just get a creature back from the graveyard, but we're not really going to put too much stock in that pack because it was pretty weak. So the way you draft these guild sets is you put normally there's a pretty significant downside to taking a gold card, but because there are only 5 guilds instead of 10 color combinations to draft, it really is much less impactful to start something off with an Azorius Knight Arbiter or something of that nature. The themes of the set, black-white has some like tokens themes. It's got a mechanic called Afterlife where things die into tokens. Blue-green is an adapt mechanic where you can spend some mana to put counters on the creatures. Red-green is just big creatures like Savage Smash and Rage Ceratox type things. Blue-white has a mechanic called Addendum, but it's also just a nice control deck a lot of the time, or a flyers deck sometimes. And then I keep forgetting one of my guilds when talking. And Rakdos has a mechanic called Spectacle, which rewards you for dealing damage to the opponent. In this pack, Enraged Ceratox is a nice attacker creature that's pretty flexible and difficult to block by all the tokens that are running around, so it's just a very powerful card. Savage Smash is also great for Gruul decks, but this can go in Simic too. So there is some benefit to flexibility, but Savage Smash is probably my second place, and then Skatewing Spy is really good. It's just a little bit more expensive to activate, so it sometimes isn't perfect for your deck. Okay, moving on to pack 3, we have an Orzhov card, and then a card that can fit nicely into Simic or Gruul. We see Pitiless Pontiff, which isn't really the best Orzhov card because it doesn't really make that many tokens, but it is still a card that you can make good use of. There is some enchantment removal in this set, so Pitiless Pontiff can get some good value sacking those creatures, or sacking something like Imperious Oligarch. Seeing 2 of those cards in this pack is a nice sign for Orzhov, because there's 2 different powerful payoffs. Bullrack Clan Crusher is sometimes a little bit harder to use because with your 5-drop 4/4 you want to be attacking, whereas this will rewards you by pinging things, so it's a little bit worse than it looks, even though the ability is quite strong. It would be much better on like a 3-mana 1/1 with that ability or something that didn't want to be attacking. I think I'm going to take the Pontiff. It's really powerful to have this ability. The ability to gain Indestructible on a Death Touch creature is really nice, and hopefully we can get the Oligarch type things later. They're less replaceable. This card is flexible and can go in any deck, but it's never going to be like the best card in my deck. So I'm totally okay with the way we've started this draft off. We're still finding our lane, and as in most sets that are like this, where there's a limited number of archetypes available, it's more important to find your lane than to make each pick completely perfectly. So if you're new to this set, don't be afraid to just dive in and try to just do your best to find the open set. Be more flexible to changing. This is a little bit of a weird draft because we didn't have any like super powerful cards early that would like stop us from changing. But in this pack, I'm totally okay taking like a Law Mage's Binding. It's another Azorius card to go with the Knight Arbiter. I haven't really seen a ton of Azorius stuff, but if I'm seeing this 4th pick, this is a pretty powerful card. It's like a flash pacifism like effect, and that's just a nice type of card. Other things in this pack, there's Thought Collapse, which is a little bit better than it looks. It can just be a win condition for your control decks, the mill effect. And then other than that, Slime Bind can be okay. So we're seeing a little bit of blue. Blood Mist isn't great. Blade Brand is okay as well. Orzhov Guildgate. Sometimes you'll just try to draft some gates. Okie doke. And now the guild mages in this iteration of Ravnica are a little bit weaker, but this is still nice. Being able to move the counters around, put extra counters is still good. But I think at this point, Chillbringer is going to be better. Even if we were to end up in Simic, Chillbringer would be a good card. I think this is the best blue common in the set, and it does fit nicely with my Azorius start too, because I can go with my Night Arbiter, my Law Mage's Binding, and maybe play some blue-white. And then also Conclave Guildmage. I mean, Chillbringer can also go with this Enraged Ceratok. Other cards, the Azorius Guildgate is nice. There are some cards that care about you having gates, and this can also enable some splashing if you pick up enough gates. The gates deck is way better supported in Ravnica Allegiance than it was in Guilds of Ravnica, so if you were used to drafting Guilds of Ravnica and seeing all the gate payoffs as like a trap, it is not the case in this format. So we're just going to take the Chillbringer here. Okie doke. So in this pack, we do not see any real great Azorius cards. Keep in mind, you can always play something like a Vizkopa Vampire as an Azorius card, though the 1 toughness is a pretty big downside in a set with a lot of not only small tokens because of the Afterlife mechanic, but also just a decent amount of 1 damage, like ping effects and hate like that. So Vizkopa Vampire gets a little bit of a knock, but it's still a playable card. Rakdos Guildgate isn't really a card that's where I'm at because I don't have any Rakdos cards. Arrestor's Zeal is not a card I love playing in my Azorius decks. There is also just a Clan Guildmage, which maybe is a sign that green-red's open. I could still transition to that with my Enraged Ceratok. And because there's not much else for me, I'm just missing out on a Vampire for my deck. I'm totally willing to potentially find a more open lane with the Clan Guildmage. Okay, and now in this pack there is a Final Payment, which is a really good Orzhov card. There's also a Senate Courier, which can be good for the controlling Azorius decks. So let's keep stock of where we got the Azorius cards. We first picked this one, so that's not really a signal at all. So we first picked this card. We then second picked the Enraged Ceratok, so a little bit of a green signal. We third picked the Pitiless Pontiff, so black-white. Then we got this card, and then this card, and then this card. I think that's the order. Maybe we third picked this, but I think we got this one next. So we're seeing a little bit more Final Payment stuff. Maybe blue-green is open. I think we are just going to take the Final Payment because I think it's the best card and better than Courier. I never was a huge fan of Courier because it's just a very poorly costed body. And now, look, there's another Final Payment. There's also a Blade Brand, which can go well in Orzhov as well, sometimes. There's a Rakdos Guildgate. We haven't seen a ton of great Rakdos cards, but Final Payment is a pretty nice card. You can sometimes do something where you block Sacrifice. Carry On Imp is also much better than it looks because the life gain can be pretty relevant. I don't love Pegasus or Orator all that much, but I'm down to get a second one of these. You don't want too many, but having a couple is fine. Cavalcade was generally a trap, though there are some decks that can make it work. Okay, and then on the wheel, we see a Syndicate Messenger, just a nice little 2/3 flyer that dies into a 1/1. It's a fine card to get you extra fodder for our Final Payments. Cry of the Carnarium is interesting because currently our deck is very creature light, but generally it's just weaker in this format because not only do you sometimes play against decks where it's just a complete blank with like the control decks, but it's also just not good even against the aggro decks because Groll in particular just plays a bunch of like 4/4s like Ceratok and Rexy. So we're just going to take the Sylvan Messenger. It's a card that I'm pretty happy taking. And now there's a Carry On Imp. There's also a Skatewing Spy. Pretty late, though this is a little bit of a clunky card. I also am I'm a little bit higher on Carry On Imp than others, so I probably can get some later. And it does compete for the same spot as Syndicate Messenger. If we couldn't get some gates, we could maybe splash some of these blue cards in our black-white deck. It's looking like black-white is relatively open. Skatewing Spy or just a Carry On Imp. I'm going to take the Spy because there is a chance that I end up in blue-white, in which case I'd much rather have the Skatewing Spy, of course. And now we'll just take the Steeple Creeper over Debtor's Transport, which I never loved. It's just too expensive. And Rakdos Trumpeter, which is like a black-red card. You don't want to play it if you can't activate it. And we could still end up in blue-green or off-chance red-green, though that's very unlikely. We'd have to open a very good rare, but I'm missing out on a Debtor's Transport, so I'm not really worried. It's been an interesting one for sure. We'll take a Feral Maca again, leave ourselves open to playing a Groll beatdown deck. I don't think Back to Trial is a playable card, really. And Civic Stalwart's not a card I'm excited about either. Sometimes your beatdown deck just needs a Feral Maca to help you, though. Justicar's Portal can sometimes be playable. It's generally not, though. But you'll sometimes use it to make ends meet. I think it's better than Debtor's Transport. Bankrupt in Blood, yeah, not really a good card. We'll take it over the Exposed to Daylight, though. We're not really going to play Exposed to Daylight, I don't think. Though you can sometimes main deck one. Last pick, Axebane Beast. So What does that tell us? Maybe the person is not playing green, because if they were playing green, why would they pass us a last pick green card? So we've got a pile here. It's definitely a difficult spot to find ourselves in pack 1. Let's try to take stock in the next 40 seconds while we make this pick. The best cards, Tithe Taker's good, Archway Angel's good, and Blade Juggler are the best cards in this pack. We aren't really playing as much black, but we'll probably just take the Blade Juggler or the Archway Angel. We are kind of going to enjoy some life gain because of the final payment. We might end up splashing, which would mean we'd have a higher gate count for the Archway Angel. But we don't have really 2-drops to make the Blade Juggler great, because Blade Juggler thrives on going 2-drop into Blade Juggler. And Tithe Taker's also fine. Just a nice defensive 2-drop when we don't have any gates for this. I think I'm just going to take the Tithe Taker. Just a really good 2-drop. This is a high-quality flyer, but it's only high quality if you have the cards to back it up. And also, Tithe Taker works in Azorius or in the black-white deck that we've been building. Okay. It's looking like we're not going to be playing green. This card was sometimes okay, but it was oftentimes tricky to use. One of the problems was that if you draw it after you've drawn all your creatures, it's just a blank. Whereas with typical anthems, it's the opposite, where you're fine drawing them after your creatures. So let's take all of the Gruul cards out, because I don't think we're playing Gruul. The odds of us playing Simic are pretty low as well. We don't really have the tools to play Simic. We didn't see a ton of green stuff. None of the top green commons really came around. So right now we're choosing between Azorius and Orzhov, and it's looking like Orzhov was more open in pack 1. We wheeled some of the Orzhov cards we cared about. We got 2 late final payments. So I think getting an Imperious Oligarch is going to be great for us here. There is another Enraged Ceratok. There's a Lavinia is just not really great. I don't think Knight of Sorrows is very good. So we're just going to take the Oligarch and be pretty happy with that. And now the classic, as soon as you think you've got a direction, it all comes slipping away. This pack is just quite poor for us. It's got a Soroform Hybrid, which is the best green common. So maybe we aren't completely zero to play that, but we're pretty much, because we're going to need some of these gold cards to make ends meet. And it's most likely that we're playing Orzhov, what with all these great, like, Orzhov cheap cards. So with that in mind, we could take a Pegasus, or we could still speculate. Maybe we'd want to play an Esper deck. Sometimes you play an Esper control deck, and sometimes Clear the Mind can be a part of that if you don't think you have another win condition. We probably have some because of our flyers, but it's we're not going to be playing a green deck, I don't think, based on where we were in pack 1. It just didn't seem very open. But I'm fine taking Clear the Mind here. Sometimes you just need a copy of Clear the Mind as the top end of your deck. Top end, in air quotes there. This is an Absorb, which is decent as a counterspell. There's also just another Pitiless Pontiff. Pretty nice with our Tithe Taker, with our Imperious Oligarch. It just gives you nice, like, defensive options. So what would our Orzhov deck look like right now? We would have 9 cards for our deck, maybe 8 cards. We could maybe play... not really much, so we're going to have to make some commitments here. But we have a lot of great cheap cards for our Orzhov deck, so we can take some of the more expensive, clunky flyers. I'm definitely in the market for a Dead Revels. Gives me some card advantage. Get back some of my cards. Get more tokens. There is a Windstorm Drake, which can be good in blue-white. I'm really hoping that I can end up splashing white in some capacity, because I do have some good... I mean, blue in some capacity. I do have some good blue cards. But we're just going to take the Bankrupt in Blood, because it will be playable in our deck. And I'm not a huge fan of the Orator. Okay, sometimes you just want one Consigned to the Pit as a catch-all answer at the top end. The best card in this pack is Arrester's Admonition, but I think we were seeing black-white more in pack 1 than blue-white, because like we started with a blue-white card and fourth picked a blue-white card, but couldn't really commit to it, which indicates that it's a little bit harder to get in there. I think we're going to take the Syndicate Messenger. It's just a good flying threat. Consigned to the Pit is a bit expensive, and we do have 2 final payments to be like removal for anything we need. So I think we're just going to take the Messenger. Okay, now there is Orzhov Racketeers. It's an okay card. It's not like anything too special. It's better than Knight of Last Breath, though. 7 mana for this card is just way too clunky. It generally just never performed that well. Even though Afterlife 3 seems like a lot, there are cards that just prevent it from going to the graveyard, like Lawmage's Binding. There's some exile effects, so I think we'll take the Racketeers, even though it's not great either. I don't think we want the Panther, though. It's actually, like, these are pretty similar in that they're very overcosted for what they do, but dying into 2/1/1s is pretty nice there. And now we take the Messenger again. We don't really need the Gateway Plaza. We're probably not going to... Maybe... I mean, it's good for splashing, but it's really awkward, and we hopefully won't have to splash. And now Blade Brand. Blade Brand performs well when you have tokens to work with it. There's a Locket, but Blade Brand's going to work for us. I believe in it. Orzhov Locket is sometimes playable. We don't really have the expensive cards that really makes it great, but we also don't really have any 3-drops, so that makes this a little bit better. And this card's not great. It's just too small for its cost. It's understated. Let's just take Mammoth Spider. Mammoth Spider actually lined up pretty well with this format, and it's really good against us if by some random chance we played against someone from our pod. This card's pretty good. I'm surprised to see it in the pack. The Crocodile was sometimes okay. Civic Stalwart could be okay in our deck as well. We don't really have... I guess we have some 4-drops already. Maybe we want this Crocodile. I don't think we're playing it, though. Late Windstorm Drake. Windstorm Drake is the type of card that you can sometimes justify splashing in this sort of deck. Last pick, Caracol. I don't mind Caracol, actually. You can sometimes justify splashing this sort of Wind Drake thing because it buffs all of your 1/1 tokens from Afterlife. So there's that. Okay, so for our black-white deck, Grasping Throw is amazing. Gutterbones is also nice, but I don't think it's really what our deck is doing. We're more of a grindy deck, even though we do have a lot of 2-drops and some sacrifice synergies. If you look at our deck, we have 15 cards right now. Hopefully we can get rid of the Justicar's Portal. Hopefully we can get rid of the Locket. But we have a lot of cheap plays already. And so we don't need a random 2/1 because in the late game it's just going to get blanked. So getting a nice Grasping Throw is going to be great. I think Grudion wouldn't be bad either. Sphinx of New Prof would have been good for the Orzhov deck, but I think for our Azorius deck, but I think Orzhov is coming together. And then we get a Consecrate Consume. That's a good start. Getting past this card, pretty nice for us. The thing with Consume is generally Edict effects aren't as good, especially because there's a bunch of tokens running around, but this one makes them sacrifice the greatest power creature, which is generally what you want to kill. It doesn't work well with enchantment removal, but luckily we don't have any enchantment removal, so we're great on that front, and pretty happy to get a Consecrate Consume. I'm going to hover over the card so you can read it. Other than that, I think we would take Viscopa Vampire just to get a 3-drop. I don't think we're trying to get those splashes in our deck at the moment. Oh my gosh. Well, that was incredible. Look at how beautifully this draft manipulated. After pack 1, I'm sure many were doubting, but this is like one of, if not the best rare in the set, and getting past it is actually absurd. You should almost always try to play this card. Like, if you're a blue-white deck, like, just take it and try to splash it, or if you're a black-red deck, take it and try to splash, because you just basically can't lose when you play this. It kills all their tokens, makes all their creatures smaller, and then you can start making 2/2 flyers. So, massive pickup here. Even if we weren't getting that, we would be getting a great black-white card in this one, or in the Oligarch, or even in Final Payment. I, unlike many folks, am not a huge fan of Ill-Gotten Inheritance. Many people love this card because it makes them feel like they're doing something crazy, but that card is not my cup of tea. Okay. Now, there's a Blade Juggler, there's a Final Payment. We're going to take a Blade Juggler. With 2 Final Payments already, it's a little bit hard to justify a 3rd. Even though we do have some stuff to sacrifice, it's just nice to get a Blade Juggler. And now that we do have the 2-drops, like Pitiless Pontiff, Oligarch, we have some 2-drops that are kind of tricky to block, or that they don't want to block, like Tithe Taker. We can make a nice little curve out there. So maybe we can make that a 3-drop a lot of the time. We don't really need the Hazed Officer. Plague White is much better. How's our 2-drops? So we have 1, 2... These are removal spells. This is kind of like just a card. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a fine one to pick up. We can maybe cut the Caracol. This one really punishes a lot of like the creatures in the format, so it's pretty solid 2-drop. Wow, and now a Ministrant of Obligation. I'm really happy to see that. This card is just a house. Really gums up the ground, makes you a couple tokens, works well with our Final Payments. Forbidding Spirit's also pretty solid, a nice little 3/3, but this one's just much better. I wouldn't mind a Spire Mangler. It goes well with the other Afterlife cards that I have. I wouldn't mind a Grudion. I wouldn't mind a... Now that I mean, I have a decent number of ways to use Final Payment, but still going over 2 is a little bit ambitious with no life gain in the deck to speak of. And by to speak of, I mean just none at all, so we want to be a little bit careful of our life total with Final Payments. But getting a Ministrant is really nice. And now we can take a Grudion. Grudion is such a key card against the Gruul matchup. I haven't really had a great... I have had several opportunities to take one, but I haven't taken one yet. But it is a good card against the Gruul deck where they're just relying on beating you down with big creatures. So this is a nice pickup. Pick 8, last new card of the draft. And it's a bit of a whiff for us, unfortunately, but no matter. We'll just take the white card, I guess. Let's see what we get back. Ooh, really nice to see a Consign to the Pit. I was in the market for another unconditional removal spell, and even though this is expensive, the games are going to go long with this sort of deck a lot of the time, and just having another way to kill something is really nice. Especially because it can kill just anything I care about. And now Viscopa Vampire, a little bit of life gain to add to the mix. You'll love to see it. I think that's actually a really nice pickup for our deck. Gives us a little utility. We don't really care about Arrestor's Zeal. We have like a Blade Brand as our combat trick, which is kind of a combat trick, and then the Vampire is just a nice little addition. And now another final payment. I think we can probably justify a third one. We don't need multiple Dead Revels, I don't think. We have 15 creatures, so 1 Dead Revels is going to be plenty. Though getting another removal spell is nice. Another Locket. I don't think we're going to play it, but we'll take it. Sure. Wow, we're just getting a lot of late cards that are pretty decent. Oh, also Consecrates a little bit of life gain. So let's build our deck now. So if our deck can survive, we're going to be able to land, hopefully, an Ethereal Absolution and win with that. So we'll keep that in mind. And we're not going to want to splash. We don't have insane mana, so we might want to cut one of these. We might want to cut a 2-drop, so let's see. Justicar's Portal, what does it have synergy with? Exile it and return it. It gains a first strike. Do we have any enters to battlefield? We have 1, 2... Afterlife is when it dies, so that's not a synergy piece. First Strike and Death Touch is a bit of a combo, but we're not going to want to be playing that card. 10th District, no. Night of Sorrows, no. Even though it has Afterlife. Watchful Giant, no. We don't really need that expensive card. Playing 1 Orzhov Locket even might be too many. It is a nice little way to draw some cards. But I do already have this as a way to draw a card. This is some card draw. It could definitely be Prowling Caracol as the cut. Orzhov Locket actually seems okay. I have some expensive cards. It'll help me make sure I don't miss land drops, and it'll give me some way to fuel my late game. I could even honestly see playing both as just clunky card draw. I could like see shaving a land for 1, because it can help me get to my expensive cards, and I'm lacking in the 3-drop spot. So if I go Prowling Caracol, cut a land, and add a second Orzhov Locket, I honestly think that could be pretty good. Plague White is much better than the cat in more matchups, because it's just really hard to block sometimes, and it can help me get through. Though I am a more defensive deck, I still do have Blade Juggler, which cares about hitting them. Dead Rebels can sometimes care. I think triple final payment is a little bit ambitious, potentially, but we'll have to see how that looks by the time we're done. Obviously making Ethereal Absolution our poster child card. It was a little bit of a shame that all the good Orzhov cards were in the same pack. The fact that none of them were taken means Orzhov was open. It just so happened that we got past all of them at once. Though I'm not complaining because we did get past Ethereal Absolution. 16 lands also feels a little bit nice because we don't have a ton of ways to spend mana up here. This is a 4-drop. So once we get past 4, and this is oftentimes going to cost 3, we only have like 4 cards. So 16 lands is okay, I think, especially with 2 Lockets. The Caracol could be an addition. How many creatures do we have? 14 creatures. We could cut the Dead Rebels for a Caracol. It's not absurd to think about. There's only exiles from the opponent's graveyard. I think it's going to be fine having a Dead Rebels because we are trading off our creatures a lot. Hopefully, at least. But having another Caracol wouldn't be bad. So I have 1 removal spell, 3 removal spells in these, and then I have the top end one. This is 4. And then I have 5. So I have 5 removal spells. I think that's kind of where I want to be with this sort of deck. That is more of a late game, grindy type deck. So I think this is how I'm going to build it. The Caracol is not a key part of our plan. It doesn't really trade off at a super advantage. It doesn't attack super well. It's a decent blocker, but we already have decent blockers. So I think we're going to try it like this, and we're going to be willing to add in the Caracol as an extra defensive measure if our deck seems too slow. But overall, I'm pretty happy with where we ended up, and I'll see you folks in the matches. Before I get to the matches, I want to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at patreon.com/NicolaiBolas, and special thanks to those who support me at the credits level. It's thanks to patrons that I am able to continue investing the time and effort needed to produce high quality videos on a consistent basis. So thank you so much for that, and I really do appreciate it. If you would like to learn more about the Patreon, the rewards you can get for becoming a patron, and how it helps me continue to make videos, be sure to check out that information at patreon.com/NicolaiBolas. But without further ado, let's get to the matches. Welcome to round 1. We are going to keep this hand because we have 2-drop into, that's difficult to block especially. That's another reason this card's a little bit better than the Caracal. Into Blade Juggler, hopefully. Maybe going to be punished by playing a Locket instead of a land. But I like the ability to draw cards when you have a bomb as powerful as Ethereal Absolution. So everything's going according to plan. Against Simic, they might not be able to block, or they might not want to block. Also, Final Payment with Ministrant is a nice little synergy. Okay, hopefully they don't want to play. So we're going to attack first. This is a block you should almost always make in this format against the black deck, because getting down a turn 3 Blade Juggler and drawing a card is so good. This card can be good, but it's not good until later. So now these are going to come into effect. They're essentially tap lands with utility later, so I'm okay with that. If I draw a land, I can go this into this, which is nice. Lock it into Oligarch. We can keep up the pressure. One thing you always have to keep in mind when your opponent has mana up is that Fairy Duelist is a card. But now that I've drawn Blade Brand, I'm much more okay to attack all. Fairy Duelist is a 2-mana 1/2 that gives a creature -2/-0. But if they flash that in, I can Final Payment to kill something, or I can use my Blade Brand. Maybe I'm just supposed to attack with Blade Juggler because Fairy Duelist is a card. I think I'm going to do that. I don't really care about damage that much, but I do care about making sure I don't get blown out. Well, this works out nicely. They have a single blue mana. I didn't draw a land, but that's a fine one anyway. So I killed his creature. So it was basically, we both lost 2 cards, but he had to spend a card on his combat trick, and I didn't because mine cantripped. Consume's going to be a good card in this matchup, I think. My cards are going to line up well against the Senate Griffin. Beautiful. Attack first. If they block, we're happy. If they don't block, we're pretty fine. They lock it into Oligarch. Next turn we can go lock it into Ministrant, or maybe if we draw a land, lock it into Consume. One of the things about blue-green in this format is a lot of the times their creatures aren't going to grow big until they adapt them. So we can sometimes get them to spend even more mana, like 6 or 8 mana on their card, and then we kill it for 4. Every card we draw into our deck is one step closer to unbeatable Ethereal Absolution. Okay. Okie doke. So I'm not going to consume here because killing I'm going to kill a 3/2 with it. What I am going to do, however, is go land. Ministrant. I can go lock it. I can just pay the 5 life for this, but I kind of want Ministrant to die, so I get 2 1/1s to block the Senate Griffin. So I think I'm just going to go Ministrant, Final Payment, sacrificing Ministrant. Because this essentially became 3 mana to make 2 1/1s, because sometimes getting that thing killed is the hardest part. So in that way, if you can turn the downside of Final Payment into an upside, it's even better, which is one of the things that this deck does pretty well, I'd say. We can always just crack this to draw 2 cards. I think this is actually better than a land in our deck, running 2 of these instead of a basic land, just because it gives our deck so much extra value. Imagine if we just had 6 lands in play and an extra land in hand. We'd be in so much worse shape. Obviously, that would mean we were running 18 lands, but you get the point. It's generally just being a nice little overperformer here. Okay. So they could cast something big soon, so we don't really want to use this if we can help it. Okay, so we will make these 2 attacks. We don't really care about damage as much, but it's still nice to get in, obviously. And killing a Gyre Engineer is nice, especially when they're blocking a card that they clearly don't know what it does. Yikes. Afterlife is nice, and we'll just play our Sylvan. Oh, wait, we can play this first. Perfect. They don't have a counterspell up. They have Quench up, I guess, but we have a lot of mana in play. We've got our removal spell for if they play a big creature. I've got to be said, I kind of thought this thing was going to be sticking around so they could play a 7-drop or something, and then having Consume would be better. That's why I didn't Consume when I did, because I figured they'd be playing something bigger. If I had known they were going to block with this, I would have maybe killed this pre-combat. So this thing can't take to the skies just yet. And this, my friends, is why you play Ethereal Absolution. If they had quenched this, I'm going to cry, but it would be funny. But they have not indicated that they had Quench. They would have quenched Syndicate Messenger last turn. But just look at that. All of a sudden, all these things can grow unbeatably large. And, yeah, all their things die to Plague White. They just can't beat this card. 3, 5, 7, 9, 12. So they have to block something. The only thing they can block is Senate Griffin on one of these and this guy here. But then this thing dies, so they probably just want to block there. And then they take 3, 5, 7, 10. We were going to be in fine shape even if we didn't draw the Ethereal Absolution. But you can imagine games where... Imagine my opponent's board was my board. So I would have killed 3 tokens, a 2/1, and made their thing into a really useless card. Okay. That was about as good as a card they could have had in that situation. It's kind of what they need to not die immediately. But I can always just start activating this. They probably should have bounced a token, because the token never comes back then. And then they would be at 6 right now. I'd have 1 token, but they'd still be pretty dead. And they're just locked out of playing X1s now. Okay, go to combat first. So I have 5, 6, 7 mana. So I can just make something on their turn at instant speed, or play instead of playing a 3/4. I'm going to do that. They have plenty of fodder in their graveyard, and this way if they do have a counterspell, they don't get to do anything. Beautiful. Well, even without drawing the Ethereal Absolution, I think we would have been fine that game. Ooh, we ranked into Platinum. That's fun. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that game. I'll see you in the next one. Welcome to round 2. We have a very similar hand on the draw, though, so it becomes a little bit worse when you're not going to be attacking as much, though Plague White is more of an attacker than a defender. So we'll have to see what matchup we're against. Consume will be good against any matchup, because the life gain is relevant. Killing big creatures is almost always relevant. And Bladebrand can be really good in our deck. One other thing I want to note about that last game is Feral Caracol would have been very poor. Well, that probably indicates Simic, which is probably better for our Plague White into Blade Juggler hopes. Also, Bladebrand's going to be good against them, and Consume is going to be good against them. Oh, green-white. So maybe they don't know how to draft the format, or they're doing something more experimental. Because these two cards don't really go together. Because when you have an early drop of a color, it means that that's generally one of your base colors. And so Selesnya is not a supported archetype in this format. So we'll have to be seeing what they get up to. Should be a spicy brew. To get back to my other point, though, the Feral Caracal, which is a 2-mana 3/1, as you can see that last game, it would have just been miserable against... like, if we ever play against a deck like mine, which is like 20% of the field, it's just horrific. It just ends so badly. Okay, so we are still going to go for our Blade Juggler plan. So this is going to be a problem, but we can hopefully block it. They're going to be hitting us for 8, and we'll block the Beastmaster. Next turn, we'll consume whatever they play this turn. Got a couple of lands lined up. This is going to be a good blocker that buys us some time. Blade Brand and Tithe Taker should be pretty decent. Okay, so they're splashing blue. We definitely want to kill the Beastmaster. They could have +2/+2, but that will stop us from killing this thing as well. And this is, if they don't have it, we'd much rather kill this. They could also have +3/+3. So that worked out. We killed their high priority target with our card that cantripped. They're down to 3 cards in hand. And we get to have a little fun here. We're certainly going to attack with Plague White. Now we play our Tithe Taker. I'm really glad that we have those lockets to give us some card draw, because this deck does enjoy having card advantage in it. I think the worst card for them to have would be like a low-powered, high-threat level creature. The 5-mana 2/5 that's unblockable and has Vigilance comes to mind, but luckily I have Consign the Pit to the Pit for that. Maybe they had an instant, but they couldn't cast it because of the Tithe Taker. Because they didn't cast it in response. Ooh, maybe some Gates action. We'll certainly block. No camera. No camera. Okay, so this is a pretty good block for us. Because we still end up with a 1/1, but they don't have a creature anymore to use with their Caretaker or anything. And it's a 1/1 flyer, so nice little upgrade there. Oh, a Homunculus. Aeromunculus, to be precise. Well, this game just got a lot easier. I messed up there. What I'm going to end up doing here is consuming. I have Consigned to the Pit for if they have anything big. Oh. Well. And I'm going to be jamming my Ethereal Absolution next turn. Maybe I should wait. Because this can get rid of big threat. Yeah, I guess. Because the only way I lose is if they have big threats now. All their small creatures don't matter anymore. And if they are going to upgrade this, which I suspect they will, then Blade Brand is pretty free to use. And if they have their last card as a bounce spell, then we're okay as well. Because then it means they don't have a counter spell, so we can just jam this into their mana. Perfect. So this is where having Consume available is really nice. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this next turn is going to be a little bit weird, but we're actually going to play... I think we're going to play Consign to the Pit because we can use Consume later and 14 life is still high enough. So this uses our mana a lot better. And shrinking this down to a 4/4, it's still going to be a 6/6 and it can hit us next turn. So we don't want to have to deal with that. We are giving them another turn to draw a counter spell. So that is relevant. Okay, so I don't think they have anything. But we're just being cautious, because when our Ethereal Absolution doesn't do anything, it doesn't really matter if we do anything. Growth Spiral was another card that I wasn't really a huge fan of, because you couldn't often use the mana, and you just run out of lands in your hand. Okay, Guardian Project, that's a real card. I'll raise you a Guardian Project, though, opponent. Certainly play this pre-combat so we hit them for more. They're going to end up chumping a lot of the time there. And then we have 8 mana, so we can just exile 2 cards from their graveyard, make 2 creatures a turn. Ouch. The downside. Get wrecked, Nikolai. That's pretty brutal. The pump from the Ethereal Absolution, too good. Man, not getting 2 1/1s is kind of a yikes. I'm just going to make the 2 creatures here. It has to be from the opponent's graveyard, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 creatures, so we're chilling. We will certainly be in the market for blocking, because we can then get another 2/2 when this thing is in the graveyard. I guess I should have technically made another thing to double block, because that plays around +3/+3. Beautiful. They are doing their best over there. So I have enough to do this and still double pump, I think. I believe I counted that right. Nope, I miscounted. I thought I had 1 extra swamp. I have 4. Yeah, I do have enough. Okay, perfect. Whew, that's a relief. This is 1 point of damage a turn, so it's not going to be a real threat to me. I am concerned about something like a Wrecking Beast, which is like a massive creature. It could be a threat. I will say this game would be really hard to win without the Ethereal, just because their Guardian Project is so good. Because Guardian Project is getting them a lot of value in this late game. Okay, a 0-powered creature, but they are still churning through their deck looking for big cards, which hopefully our Consume can answer. I'm glad we've saved this Consume for so long. Okay. I take 2. Get rid of the Aeromunculus, make a 2/2. Get rid of the Trollbred Guardian, make a 2/2. So they have 1, 2 more creatures in the graveyard, so I can afford to slow down on this and play some cards from my hand. Because I don't want to run out of fuel to use. And this Syndicate Messenger is pretty decent. 3/4 blocks all their stuff, obviously. There is a saying, make haze shine. No, make hay while the sun's shining. So, like, if they did have an answer to my Ethereal Absolution, killing their stuff would be important. I mean, getting as much value from it would be important. But since there only is 2 cards left, I'll be missing out on 1/1/1 token. Yikes. That would have been a scary way to lose. Opponent is definitely putting up a good fight. Very commendable here. Good job saving this, though. This is the type of game where we could have easily lost if we were less patient with this. Well fought, Tim C, though. Well fought. That was a tough one for them, and they made it a struggle. They made it a real battle against one of the best rares in the set, so many commendations. If you end up watching this video, Tim C, sweet deck. And anyway, I'll see everybody in the next round. Welcome to round 3. This is certainly a keepable hand. We have good odds of drawing a land on the 3rd turn. By the 3rd turn, at least. Thirsting Shade, not really a good card. We're pretty happy facing that because it doesn't line up well against our cards. Ooh, another black-white matchup. It's just so expensive to use that it's not very good. Okay, what are they going to take? Maybe they're going to take the Locket. Probably going to take the Tithe Taker if I had to bet. Drill Bit's not really a great card, just because if you have to cast it for 3, it's pretty bad. And a lot of the time you don't want to take the early turns to cast a discard spell like this. And in the late game you don't really want to do it. Like, it's just kind of awkward. So this is a moment of truth. If we don't draw a land here, it's going to be a real tough game to win. But it looks like they might not draw a land either. Beautiful. We're going to play this because it can attack into Plague White and start stabilizing us. We can play this into Plague White if we draw another land next turn. Or we can just play Ministrant or something. Perfecto. It looks like they missed a land drop too. They have to block this. Yep. We'll play Ministrant to block the Shade. We're hoping to draw another land before we play the Locket into something. But this blocking here is really good for us. Sure. And we have Pitiless Pontiff to deal with this thing. That is a problem. But we need one land and then we're going to be in the clear against it. Because then we can consign it to the pit. Really hoping we hit that land that we need this turn. Which does have trample. Probably going to block the Plague White here. Oh, this is really good for me. We want to minimize the damage we take. They could totally have combat trick of some kind. Or a final payment or something of that nature. Big draw here for us. Ooh, that's an ouch. So I'm taking 6 next turn. Let's just play this now, I guess. Bladebrand could be a good card to have. It's worse than a land, but still could be useful. I would have rather drawn them in the opposite order. What a draw. Hoping for the best here. I don't think there's really a card that could prevent this. There's the Exile. There's like just a Car's Fate. They could have final payment to kill one of my cards. Overall, I'm pretty happy if this works, though. I mean, Justicar's Portal, or the one that exiles and returns it, but we can't play around that. Okay. I guess we should have attacked first. Okay, the Caracal. Let's go. We are in control now. Okay. We're 3 life. We're stable. We've got... They know we have something in our hand, because otherwise we would have played the Plague White. Sure. So look at this, our card is... Oh, that's such a good draw. This is going to be really good for us, because then we can start hitting them with it. We can also start hitting them with the Plague White. That's going to be good as well. I'm fine trading these off too. We do have card draw in this deck, so there's no reason to really hold the land. I mean, hold things. People don't really play mind draw type cards. I don't seem to remember them being. Orzhov Locket was a key card draw engine in this deck. Also helped us cast Consign a little bit. We know they have a lot of spells in hand, but our board state's really good, and we're starting to hit them for 3 a turn. Missing out on that 3 damage from our Blade Juggler might end up being important. Okay, that makes sense. I think I can keep attacking with this. If they attack me there, I can block there. I really want to keep up the pressure. So they would sacrifice Prowling Caracal if I used this. I would go to 8, but I'd be able to keep attacking and I wouldn't have to trade these off. Oh, that's actually really good for me. So now this can still block there. I would take 1 from that. Block, block. Yeah, this is still fine. We want to hold this in case they play like a big flyer or something that's really dangerous. Oh, I understand. Okay. Well, I could not have beaten that card. I was doing my best. 2, 4, 6. Yep, we lose. As you can see, Ethereal Absolution has won every single round. I mean, nothing we could have done there against that. We were trying to kill them as fast as possible. If we had put them down to 5 by hitting them with the Blade Juggler, if they were like 3 lower, we could have maybe been... I mean, we still wouldn't have been able to kill them with our attack that turn, and they would have jammed us and we would have lost. Real close one, though. Welcome to round 4. We have a great hand here. That last game was really close, despite both of us being mana screwed a little bit. Next turn, it's really close on whether we want to play this or play a Locket. If we draw a land, we probably just want to play the Vampire. Against Azores, I think ramping is going to be important. We're 2 birds of the same stone here. Wow, weird that they don't attack there. Unfortunate, but we'll be fine. Okay, so I'm not going to be attacking this turn. Oh yes, play the 1 toughness creature's opponent. Hopefully we can get this Racketeers down. It's a pretty threatening attacker. There we go. We couldn't have attacked them anyway. Wow, they're cracking it. This gives us a golden opportunity to resolve it. Oh, and we missed the land, unfortunately. We're going to start with this, because then we can attack with the Pontiff. They're just going to block like that, so we don't want to do that. They don't have a counterspell, or they would have waited on cracking the Locket. At least that's what I believe they would have done. Okie doke. If we draw a land, we just win the game. It's kind of a bummer because this game could have been really interesting without Ethereal Absolution, but I still do like winning, so we're not going to be a mad person. We can wait for them to make that big before we do anything. I'm glad we were patient. Four, 8. We're okay if they trade a 2/2 for this because we gain a bunch of life. Yep. That's the problem with rares like that, is it's good to get wins, but it just destroys a lot of the complexity of a game when there's a card that's that busted. Oh well, you win some, you lose some with it. We've only ever lost to that card, and we've won a lot of the times with it, so see you folks in the next round. Welcome to another round on the play. Tithe Taker into Blade Juggler. Really hyped to see that. It's funny, I never really figured out the Locket technology when this set was first out. Like, playing 2 Lockets instead of a land sounds like really good, now that I think about it. In like a lot of the more controlling decks like Azorius or like Orzhov control decks or things like that. We have a really good curve lined up here. And there goes that proposition. That's a good card against this particular start. Oh dear. I would have liked to have an answer to this, because they're going to just play a gate and wreck me. This card's pretty good. We'll stop them from drawing a card. We essentially sacrificed our 2/1, but turned it into a 1/1 flyer. If they want to bounce this, we get to drain them again. There is the skipper. And just like that, the game ceases to be interesting. So maybe they have an answer. The thing is it's not like I'm refusing to put this card in my deck still. I still like winning. There's the skipper. Let's just be positive about it. When we have it in our deck, we can be positive about it. We'll only savagely complain when our opponent plays it. Oh, look. Haha! 3 mana, 0/3. What are you thinking? Why would you play a card like that? Okay, I had to undo that. Playing my 2 creatures is way better. They don't have anything I want to kill. Essence capture? Okey-doke. They're holding up counter magic, so we gotta be careful. I think they have a counter spell. Nope, they don't. We're just gonna play Racketeers instead of Dead Revelings back something this turn. Yep. Who you gonna block? Ghostbusters! We'll probably be able to Dead Rebels and play Grasping Thrill this turn, which will get that last 2 points of damage in, maybe. We'll get 2 flyers. Maybe it would have been better to just make a token. But it's nice to cast your spell when they're tapped out a little. Boom! Got another win. See you folks next round. Welcome to round 6, I believe. We're 4-1. We're going to keep this hand. Hopefully everyone's starting to see why you don't really pass Ethereal Absolution in this format, because it has been a beating. But we don't have it in this hand, so we'll maybe win on the merits of our other cards, but we'll have to see. Certainly one of our better cards. Ooh, Rakdos. One of the things you always want to think about against a Rakdos deck is how much damage am I going to take from this card. So like this card's going to deal 2, 4. It's going to deal a lot. I'm just going to kill it. Because this prevents Blade Juggler on turn 3. I'm not going to be able to block it for a while. I can try to block that one, because I've kind of at least disrupted their Blade Juggler curve outs a little. Nope, and now they can Blade Juggler. Light up the stage. Well, that is a yikes for them. Yep. They can't play these cards, so... You generally want Light Up the Stage as your last card. This card is generally just not very good, because in Constructed you can build your deck filled with like 1 mana cards. But in Limited that's not the case. So they just spent a card from their hand to do nothing. Just spending all my mana. They don't have a card to kill, so I don't need a final payment. Ah! I'm fine doing this. I can just block trade here. It's not the greatest trade, but it keeps them from spectacling, and I think it's nice to get my Blade Juggler down. I could have played Tithe Taker, but I think I'm fine. We can crack one of our lockets if they don't do anything. If they go for a kill spell, we can final payment to kill the Roustabout. When you have 3 removal spells in hand, you need to be way more aggressive using your removal spells. We'll take out the Recluse. So yeah, we're in good shape here. Our lockets are drawing us cards. We've got 2 removal spells for all of the big creatures they have in their hand. Nice and calm. I like killing the Menace card. Look at us go. That's another good one. That's why we did that on our turn. Because we have enough mana to play a lot of the cards we would draw, and we can always hold up our final payment anyway. What are you trying to spectacle? Dead Rebels would be a rough one. Yep, Blade Juggler is good. We know this. We can sacrifice these tokens to make this guy indestructible. We can go block, block. Having access to an indestructible Death Toucher is really nice. And keeping the board clear is good for our consume. Rafter Demon was a bit of a miss. If the Spectacle cost 1 black-red instead of, for some reason, costing more than the normal cost, it would have actually been fine, I think. Just gonna do that. They could make me discard Ethereal Absolution, which would be pretty bad. But I don't know. I feel like I'm fine. I was at 11, so there's like some weird combo of cards maybe where they get me. Pretty unlikely though, either way. This game wasn't won by Ethereal Absolution. We were going to win this anyway, I think. Actually, sure. Because we have the mana to like make a 1/1 by exiling a card from the graveyard, which is going to be a 2/2, so. No need to rush it. Got the win. Sometimes satisfying to just kill a creature and then watch as the afterlife tokens die immediately, but we didn't need to use our final payment. See you in the next round. Welcome to round 7, I believe. Plague White doing good work in the opening hand once more. Certainly a keep. I'm really digging these lands. It's been real nice having them. They just put me in a calm mood. So far our deck has been cruising most of the time. Opponent is on a mulligan, okay. Gutter Bones, sure. So, could be anything. This card is pretty scary on turn 1. Orzhov it is, okay. I can't block. If I block Gutter Bones, they'll bring it back. Well, that's really bad for me. I think this game's not going pretty well. Because I was hoping to be able to go block, block. I wouldn't have lost life. They can get back Gutter Bones. Yep. But if they don't have another swamp, they can't play it. Yeah. I need to draw cards. I have not drawn exceptionally well here. wild thing is if I draw Absolution in the next 2 draw steps, I'm still going to win. At least I might have been able to. I don't know if that's still the case. It's hard to win when you draw this many lands, especially when your opponent doesn't draw that many. They just draw like the perfect number. Well. All right. You know what they say, it's Absolution time. Also known as Hammer time in some circles. It would just be so good. Hello. Okay. Just got to keep giving ourselves more draws. The longer we survive, the more odds we have of drawing our out. Oh, we're totally dead. Yep, that's just what happens when you draw 10 lands and your opponent draws 5. Even though they had to mulligan. It happens. GG opponent. We have been matched against a mythic player. Pretty cool. But yeah, we got a pretty solid hand. On the draw. We might have to fire off Final Payment on a 2-drop again, depending. Okay. Let's hope we can live long enough to get this Absolution train rolling. So I'm going to take at least 2 from that. I don't want to have to deal with Blade Juggler on turn 3. Oh, I suck. Well, I messed that up in a big way. I should have just killed it on my turn. I totally forgot that was how that worked. That misplay is probably going to cost me the game. Or potentially will. At the very least. I just didn't even think about it. My bad. I try not to make bad plays, but sometimes I can't avoid them. Hopefully we draw a 2-drop here. Okay, that'll be good for stalling. Dang it, I really was trying my best to not screw that up, but then I screwed it up anyway. I'll trade these off happily. Because this means I can get it back with Dead Rebels. Next turn I can exile their card and Ministrant. Why didn't I attack with my Ministrant? That was really bad. They're just gonna tap this thing, which is why I did it this way. I'm totally gonna die. Actually, no, this thing gains me another couple life. Shucks. Come on. Criminy. I need to draw my consume. Final payment. That's a turn late. Okay. So, deals 1 damage to any target whenever a non-token creature I control dies. This thing's gonna deal 5 to me. This thing's gonna deal 2 to me. I go to 3. Then if these 3 creatures die, I lose. Because they could also tap this instead of pinging me for 2. They tap this, then they can hit me for 3. I think I should have tried to incentivize that, because then I could have sacrificed this thing to kill something. I just have to survive 1 more turn. They ping. They ping. If I kill this, I'll be at 3. Then this will ping me for 1. So I'll be at 2. What a travesty. I blew this game so hard by my final payment play on turn 2. Oh, I was thinking about all the right things, but I was not fully focused on how Spectacle worked. What a fail. I guess I just have to hope they don't see it. Yep. They got me. Wow. Wow. I completely botched that. I might have also been able to win if I'd attacked with the Ministrant one of those turns. Oh, gosh. Because what I ended up doing was I cost myself 5 life and I didn't stop the Blade Brand from coming into play. And Blade Brand on turn 3 is really tricky. Gosh, if they hadn't had Judith, I would have been able to win. They had just enough gas to get across the finish line. Real rough. I'm a little disappointed in how I played that, for sure. It's real demoralizing to just do something so stupid, but, you know, you live and you learn. I think that deck could have got 7 wins easily. We lost to a opponent having Ethereal Absolution, we lost to flooding out really badly, and we lost to opponent having just enough to get across the finish line when I messed it up. So, yeah, pretty brutal way to go, but yeah, that wasn't even one of our best draws. We had our own struggles there as well, for sure. Just a little bit unfortunate. But yeah, that's going to do it for this draft video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Definitely could have gotten a little bit better of a result, but that's sometimes how it goes when you're not 100% focused. But yeah, if you did make it all the way to the end, remember to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with any questions or feedback. Leave a hashtag #thirdpick Absolution to let me know you made it all the way to the end of the video, because Absolution really carried us and won us a lot of games. If you would like to support my content directly, you can do so via the Patreon, patreon.com/NicolaiBolas. You can catch me streaming live at twitch.tv/NicolaiBolas, and you can find a link to the NicolaiBolas community Discord server, which is free to join for everybody, in the description down below. You can also check out my articles there as well. But that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it despite the disappointing finish, and I'll talk to you next time.